Steve Bannon has reported to jail. Inmate number 056-35509 reporting to Danbury Federal Prison after his final War Room broadcast. What did Steve Bannon do? He defied a congressional subpoena. What did Merrick Garland do? What did Eric Holder do? Same thing. Why is it that Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon are in jail? It's because you do not live in a country where functional written rules matter. We'll talk about that in a second, but first, let me give you the news from the Post-Millennial. Steve Bannon reports. Bannon reported to Danbury Federal Prison in Connecticut on Monday, July 1st. Bannon arrived outside the prison, spoke to supporters during a live stream of War Room, and then went into the facility. Victory or death. It's time for me to surrender up at Danbury, Bannon said to the press and supporters. He then walked up to the prison facility. Don't pray for me, pray for our enemies, Bannon said before heading inside. There's more videos here. Bannon had live streamed his drive over to the prison before he took questions from reporters and addressing the press. He was convicted of contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena. After appealing the decision, his conviction was upheld in federal court. He then appealed directly to the Supreme Court while asking to stay out of prison while the appeal was pending. SCOTUS denied the motion. A lot of people are celebrating the Supreme Court right now because of their decision on presidential immunity, but they got this one wrong. We are now in a country where Merrick Garland, where any Democrat who defies a congressional subpoena faces no repercussion, and Republicans do. It's interesting considering that the Supreme Court actually said that all occupants of the Oval Office enjoy broad immunity for their congressional duties. Well, now there's a question about those that serve at the discretion of the president. I'll take you now through the case of Steve Bannon, where we're at and why this is, let's just say, very dangerous for our democracy. As the story goes, and I'm paraphrasing, probably shortening it and maybe getting it wrong a little bit. Bear with me. Fact check. It's been a long time since this news broke. It's been a couple of years. Steve Bannon was ordered by the J6 committee to turn over documents and information. He said, sure, but these are executive documents. Donald Trump cited executive privilege. Congress cannot take communications from the executive branch. They are co-equal branches. Steve Bannon said, I am barred from turning these things over because the executive branch has instructed me not to. They said Trump's not in office anymore, so he has no executive privilege, which is insane. This question needed to go before the Supreme Court. Does a president retain executive privilege after leaving office? Yes, of course he does. How insane is it what they are doing to this country? The idea that as soon as you leave office, everything you say or have done is no longer privileged. It's privileged for a reason, to create co-equal branches of government. You want to file a lawsuit? If Supreme Court and legislature want to change and amend the Constitution and alter our system of governance, those are all allowed. But there's a policy and a procedure for how we go about these things. Eventually, Trump relented and said, Steve, go ahead and give him the documents. And Steve said, okay, guys, where do you want the documents? And they said, you're too late. You defied our order and you'll go to prison now. And they wait until 4 months before the election to put Bannon in prison for 4 months. This is not just an attack on a political rival. This is an attack on one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent, Trump-supporting voice. Now, hold on. Let me clarify. There are many people who are more famous than Bannon who support Trump. What I am saying is Bannon may be one of the most effective and prominent among Trump supporters, one of the loudest, most vocal, intelligent, and that's why they're targeting him. Make no mistake, they'll go after everybody if they can. Peter Navarro is already in jail for the same thing. Right now, Merrick Garland is not in jail. Let me tell you the story of Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is the head of the DOJ. We found out that Joe Biden had classified documents in numerous locations, his office, his property. It's a crime. Trump is being prosecuted for that crime. Joe Biden is not. Why? We don't know why. The answer that we've given from Robert Hur, is that Biden is not competent to stand trial. He's a doddering old man with a bad memory, and they're not going to be able to prosecute him. He's the president. He's got the nuclear football. No. So Republicans said, okay, we want that recording. We want the recording of the conversation between Biden and her so we can understand if anything else is said that's not in the transcript. So they subpoenaed Merrick Garland. Garland said, shove off. What? We have subpoenaed you. Answer the subpoena. It says no. They said, okay, he's defied the subpoena. Like Bannon, like Navarro, jail. They referred the matter to the DOJ, who said, shove off. They ain't going anywhere near Merrick Garland. He's above the law. That's where we're at now. Republicans are threatening to use what's called inherent contempt to instruct the Sergeant at Arms of Congress to go and arrest Merrick Garland at his home. So many people have asked me, one of the questions we got in the last segment about the Supreme Court and immunity was, oh boy, could this lead to civil war? I think the Supreme Court ruling is a stabilizing effect. By saying that the president has immunity, you are basically stabilizing the power between the branches. The idea that they would try to put Trump in prison is what will lead us towards instability and chaos. We don't want that. The Supreme Court made the right move there. The Supreme Court could have restored balance here, but they chose not to because they are weak. It's laughably insane to me how weak they are. It's sad, really. But so to the question then about instability and civil war, I can only say this. Some of these rulings may stave off the worst of it. I don't know if we're going to see civil war. I don't know what's going to happen. Right? My position is that we are in civil strife. That's been described by numerous academics across the spectrum, from left, right, even the CIA. They say we are in civil strife. That is like Bleeding Kansas, the period pre-Civil War. Now, whether this escalates to full-on civil war, I have no idea. That's why I want Trump to win. I think Trump's victory is a stabilizing force for a variety of reasons. One, Trump wants to secure the border, which will be better for our economy, better for local residents in cities like New York, Chicago, LA, who are dealing with an influx of mass illegal immigration. Donald Trump was one of the most effective peacemakers we've had, despite all of his bad foreign policy decisions, for which there were many. Commando raids, bombing Syria. I get it. A lot of people have questioned the attack on Soleimani. Was it Soleimani? And so there's concerns about foreign policy. I get that, but I still think one of the most effective peacemakers. I think that Donald Trump ticks us back towards stability a little bit. I don't know what happens, but I think that's true. I think Joe Biden does the opposite. However, I also think it's fair to say that whatever happens this November, we have no idea, and it could spill over. I think that if Joe Biden wins, the country crumbles. It's possible that if Donald Trump wins, ignition is a possibility. Under Joe Biden, we've got a shattered border, a bumbling man who can't remember where he is or name countries correctly. We've got a disastrous foreign policy that is inching us towards World War III with no end in sight. The economy is not doing too well. That's the one that matters to regular people. Under Donald Trump, I believe his leadership will be effective. Imperfect, dramatically imperfect, but effective enough at ticking us back towards stability and away from chaos. However, while procedurally and policy-wise he may have a plan, my fear is this, what we're seeing with Bannon and what the left will do in reaction. The dramatic, psychotic reaction from the left could lead to ignition instead of collapse. So I really don't know. What I can tell you is that Steve Bannon is a political prisoner. For no reason, he is now in prison. None. Because, we had a guest on the Timcast IRL last week who said it's the norm to defy congressional subpoenas. Is that so? And if that's the case, why are we looking at this moment with Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon? No good answer. He said because Bannon's a mobster. What are you talking? Give me a reason why Bannon's going to jail. Why the American people will now believe, that one side is above the law and one side is not. I'll tell you where that goes. When you have a society that believes even the innocent will go to jail, then there's no incentive to be innocent. And that's what the founding fathers feared. And that's why Ben Franklin championed Blackstone's formulation so greatly. If it is believed that even if you're innocent, you risk going to jail no matter what you do, there's no incentive to be innocent. The only incentive is in not getting caught. And then your incentive, it's a perverse incentive. Your incentive structures are built around what can I do to avoid getting caught for the things that I'm doing? Because even if I'm innocent, I'll go to jail anyway. And we're starting to see that rise under Democrats, especially with gun laws. Well, my friends, I give a shout out to Steve Bannon. He's a braver man than I. But I suppose in a similar situation, you can only do what you can do, right? What else would he do? He said, okay, they're taking him off the air 4 months before an election. I don't know what to tell you, man. I hope Republicans file inherent contempt. They vote on it and they bring Merrick Garland to justice for his crimes. The same as they're claiming they're doing with Steve Bannon. Let's play that game. That's the game you want to play. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.